Now, a lot of people wouldn't be truthful to themselves listening to this video. Hear what I mean? Now, a lot of people outside there that are preachers, they're preaching what they don't believe. And it's kind of difficult to get people to believe what you don't believe. But here how you just have to get people to believe. You just have to believe that you're effective in what you're doing so that it will have some truth which will give it some power. Because plenty preachers don't believe half of what they're preaching. You understand? They have a system that they fall into and they end up in a cult here. And as a preacher, when you end up in a cult here, if that cult here is not you, you go fight against the cult here that are preaching. Oh, you understand what I'm talking about? Look at a nice example. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's house, and after a while, the cult here of Pharaoh started to fight against the truth and the reality in Moses. The prophets and them that raised up, God raised up them prophet because what them prophet had in them and the culture at the time and things that was taking place, God allowed that to fight against that. And that's why you would hear the Bible say, in those days rose up. In those days came about. In those days. So what has happened with a lot of people is that you just start from a teaching, right? You get a calling, right? And you start on that teaching. But teaching means that somebody telling you what them believe. But when you read the same thing them read, you are bound to believe the same thing them believe because your revelation and their revelation will not be the same. But then when you start to read on a different level the thing that them reading, you realizing, this is not what I get in. But offer manners and respect and order, you have to follow what you have to follow. And then eventually you just end up in difficulties because after a while, when self start to convict self, you're ending up with 2 and 2 equals 7 and 5 and all these kind of thing. And rebellion does take place, internal rebellion. And after it started, you start to rebel inside, you just rebel outside. And that is why in Trinidad it has so much a small church. Yeah, small church, and they started call it all kind of different name. And then you see a man start to express his culture in his church. And then our next man changed his culture because he find this thing that them doing in that church, bringing in membership and what is what. And all them churches coming to end up being that is about how they could survive with money. Because really and truly, how much of them churches that come about really studying the people, the community, the children, and if they had to do something, everybody running to look for a sponsor, amongst themselves, they're studying what they could do from themselves. No, everybody are guilty of this, but they're showing you the culture things because people accept that this is the way that it's supposed to be done, and this is the way we could survive. And after that, again, after a period of time, another set of church break away. And that's why the government starting to put so much stringent measures in place for a lot of things, make sure your books and all that, taxes and all this kind of thing, because it's a business. Churches know more about, the destitute, the, religion, pure religion and undefiled, the fatherless and the widows, and they know it about again. So it's about a business. So church is business. But if you is a church-going person, if you're a Christian, if you're a born-again, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, let Holy Ghost really work with you. And you go see how your church life and how your spiritual life will go be different. It's not a matter about being rebellious because it's not about who more educated and who know more than who, Because he that is chief among you, you must serve. So if you feel you're more accomplished than those that in leadership, lend your services to the church, and don't lend it at a price with attitude now. That kind of thing is what I'm talking about. But learn it in that you're willing to make the place of worship a better place to be and a better place to give service to God to. Because at the end of the day, all things is about service to God. Right? So at the end of your race, you must be able to say like the Christ in John 17, you know, all that you give me is mine and I kept them. And all I have, you know, and not one is lost. That is the kind of service I want you to give to God. That in the end, you could be satisfied that when you separate from this flesh, people must be able to say, there goes a man of God, or there goes a woman of God. And they look forward to the next person that could give that kind of service to God. So take the knowledge or pass it by. You can either be truthful to yourself or you can be a hypocrite. The worst person to be a hypocrite to is yourself.